The first time I ever went to a punk show was when my older sister dragged me along to one. It was the annual holiday concert put on by a locally loved Central Pennsylvania band. The musicians wore ski masks and stomped around the stage, shredding on loud guitars and belting anti-authoritarian lyrics. Before the show, I was scared. I thought the people in attendance would immediately recognize that I wasn't punk, that I didn't dress like them, didn't know how to mosh, didn't belong there. What do I wear? How do I headbang without looking stupid? At the show, I was self-conscious about how I fit in and what I looked like, but that didn't stop me from going to another show the next time my sister asked, and another, and another. 3 years later, I moved across the country alone and didn't know anyone. I still felt like I didn't belong at punk shows, but I went anyway. When I was 19, I moved to Berkeley, California for the summer for my job. I had been working remotely for a startup nonprofit for a year when my boss asked if I could fly out to work in person for a bit. I said yes because I didn't know how to say no. Then I immediately started freaking out about how stupid it was that I agreed to that because I was definitely not going to go. I had never been to California in my life. I had never traveled alone. I didn't even eat in restaurants on my own. My 3 coworkers were 30-year-old tech bros. We would not be hanging out. For the next few months, I kept thinking about how I would have to lie to my boss and say that some family emergency came up and I wouldn't be able to come. I dreaded the idea of moving, even for a few months. I had a constant lurking anxiety about this impending doom, and then it was a week before the flight, and I hadn't told my boss I wasn't coming, so I went. Before I left home, I made huge lists of things I could do alone. I never spent so much time on my own as I did that summer. I warded off loneliness by staying as busy as I possibly could. I went to every used bookstore in the city. I sat in coffee shops, embroidering and scrawling in my journal. I went on the greatest hikes in Northern California and slept in a hammock at Big Sur. I went to jazz clubs and free folk concerts in parks. I ate alone in the cheapest Michelin star restaurants I could find. And I explored my new area by visiting notorious punk venues all across the city. I wore my thickest, blackest boots and made sure my tattoos were visible. Maybe this would help me blend in. But still, my hands trembled each time I paid for entry. I leaned awkwardly against the sticker and graffiti-covered walls as I watched the bands unloading their gear. And then the music started blasting and some of my fears were drowned out. And I jumped along with everyone else and had lots of fun and realized maybe I didn't stick out as much as I once thought. I remember I once went to a show with an audience of about 10 people. The music was good, and when it was playing, I didn't worry so much. Between songs, the lead singer looked right at me. He imitated the way I was standing, with his arms crossed over his chest. And then he joked to the audience about how I didn't look like I was having fun, brooding like that. I remember feeling like a spotlight was shone on me, but I don't remember how I got over the embarrassment. But that wasn't my last show. I met a lot of nice people at these shows, and a lot of different people. Once between sets, I waited for the bathroom in a quieter hallway. An older man wearing a t-shirt and Skechers waited near me. He might have fit in better on a golf course. It seemed he was at the show alone too. I don't remember why he started talking to me, but we talked for a while and bonded over our shared experience of relocating from Pennsylvania to California. Being so far from home, I felt so much more connected to him than anyone I would regularly meet in PA. It was nice to talk to him, but when the next band came on, I drifted back toward the stage and we never spoke again. I knew I was moving back across the country. I didn't enmesh myself in the local punk scene, but I never stopped going to shows because it was easy to be alone there. I missed my family and friends a lot that summer, but I also got a lot more comfortable with doing things on my own. I still felt the awkwardness of being the only lonely person in coffee shops and restaurants, but I didn't feel it so much when the music started blaring at punk shows and I got swept up into the energy of the crowd. So anytime I faced a night in Berkeley with nothing to do, I found a $10 punk show and filled my solo summer with music. In August, I moved back to Pittsburgh into a house with 6 of my best friends. I'm never alone. Instead of going to shows on my own, I do stuff with my friends who don't like punk music at all. I miss California a lot, even though I felt lonely the whole time I was there. This week, in one of my classes, we discussed the politics of punk music. I sat silently listening to the conversation. People spoke about punk from a theoretical lens. I wondered how many people in the class were excited about the subject matter as I was. I had something to say for nearly every second of the 90-minute conversation, and I never raised my hand. I got a little choked up when I tried to. I do this every time I sit in that class, completely interested, completely engaged, but never speaking. It's a lot easier to blend into an energetic crowd than to raise my hand and speak about those experiences. The people in that class are a lot more similar to me than the people I met at shows in California. We're all around the same age, and we're all in Pennsylvania right now. It wouldn't be miraculous to discover that any of my classmates are also from central Pennsylvania. Yet somehow we never connect over our similarities as easily as I did with that old man I met between sets. Last week, I went to another punk show alone. I was totally entranced. I didn't have to say anything to anyone. I didn't have to be noticed at all. I jumped with the crowd, screamed along as the blaring music made my voice indistinguishable from the rest. Standing among a packed room of people, totally absorbed by the excited energy of the crowd, I realized it didn't matter what I was wearing or how I was standing. It wasn't about me. The room was packed with people who all looked totally different. I'm not even sure what it means to look punk anymore. We all just looked like a mass of people enjoying the music together. I remember how worried I felt before going to my first punk show. I remembered feeling even more worried when I went to my first show alone. But I'll probably go to another show soon whether my friends want to or not, and I'll feel glad to not have to say a thing.